The Runaway Wife. It is a tragic tale about the life of a fallen Muslim girl. This is also a love story of an Egyptian prostitute who fell in love with one of her clients, who changed her life for the better. It was written in English and translated into Arabic by Dr. A. Ahmed. Copyright. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the author's prior written permission except by the reviewer, who may quote brief paragraphs from the review for printing in a newspaper, magazine, school journal, or university article. All characters in this book are fictitious, and any resemblance to real people, living or dead, is merely coincidental. Chapter 13. The former Egyptian prostitute, Ikram, tried to speak more, but her throat became severely choked. She started crying loudly. She felt as if everything that had happened to her in those dark days was repeating itself all over again. Hafez carried her in his arms and allowed her to bury her face in his chest and cry from the pain and anger boiling in her heart like the molten lava of a volcano. Ikram cried for a long time before she could continue telling her tragic story. I learned the importance of shelter from my experience on the streets on day one. I was sexually harassed by men everywhere I went. My miserable conditions prompted me to go to the main market and look for work. I didn't want the sun to set that day while I was wandering the streets like a prostitute. I got a job in the first store I entered. It was a job as a salesgirl of men's and women's clothing. Only Ethiopian and Eritrean refugee girls can do this kind of work. This is because work exposes the girl to constant harassment by men. Every man thought that the saleswoman was an available prostitute who could go with any man who wanted her in his bed. Even though I got the job, it didn't completely solve my problem. I worked for a few hours that day. I asked my employer to provide me with shelter until I had enough money to rent a place to stay on my own. He told me that housing for his female employees is not his concern. He advised me to talk to his other working girls. He had 2 refugee girls working for him. They were both originally from Eritrea. They were young and single. One of them agreed to take me to her place where she lives with other Eritrean girls. She was actually living with 3 other refugee girls from the same country. I have seen Abyssinian refugee girls in my city wearing pants and shirts like boys, but I have never seen any of them smoking cigarettes. As soon as we left the store, my hostess lit her cigarette. Because of this masculine behavior, every step we took, Egyptian men harassed us. Like male dogs that chase 2 bitches to sexually prey on them in broad daylight, thus some of them followed us. I did everything I could to discourage these lustful men from harassing and stalking us. I literally spat in their faces, verbally fought with them, and threatened to call the police on them. As soon as we got rid of one man, another man came and walked behind us like a mad dog. Inside the bus, male passengers also harassed us. My Eritrean hostess kept telling me that I should ignore them. She thought that the more disturbed I became by their sexual harassment, the more persistent they would become. It seems that experience taught her that ignoring them would make their situation less dangerous for her. However, I felt ashamed to see her being physically harassed and did nothing about it. I would push away the hand of every man who touched me on my butt and chest or leaned on me with his erect penis. When we arrived at her place of residence, we found 3 other girls and at least 6 boys. Each of the girls smoked cigarettes or drank shisha. These Eritrean girls wore very short dresses. Almost all the private parts of their bodies were exposed as if they were naked. I felt uncomfortable in the residence, which looked like a brothel or a belly dancing cabaret. It was worse than a whorehouse or a nightclub bar. Like wearing a swimsuit at the beach, my hostess changed her jeans and put on short pants and a sleeveless tight shirt. I became afraid to spend one night in a dorm where girls and boys gathered. I wondered if the boys were staying with the girls who were not related to them. My fears began to fade as I saw the boys leaving the girls' dormitory one by one. By 11 o'clock at night, we were just girls. My hostess gave me her bed and slept on the floor. I slept peacefully that night. The next day, my work colleague woke me up at 6:30 a.m. In less than an hour, each girl was ready to go to work. My hostess told me that 2 of the Eritrean girls work as maids in the houses of wealthy Egyptians, while the 3rd refugee girl works as a waitress in a popular restaurant. I decided to live with them until I found a better alternative to living alone. My new friend liked the idea and welcomed me to stay with her. I asked her about the Eritrean boys and she said that every girl has a boyfriend but is not married to him. The other 3 boys were either relatives or friends of their lovers. She also told me that she too has an Eritrean friend whom she loves, but he did not come that day because he was working as a sweeper in some government office on the night shift. I did not like the Eritrean girls' short dresses that made them look half-naked and unclothed and their habit of smoking cigarettes and hookahs, but I liked their freedom that was not controlled by a father, brother, or husband. I was the only girl among them who was wearing an abaya and hijab. When the other girls learned that I intended to stay with them, one of them objected. Her argument was that my staying in their residence would attract the attention of the neighbors because they were African foreigners, while I was an Egyptian Arab citizen. Although her point of view was strong, the other girls did not accept it. I lived in peace with these Eritrean girls for 3 weeks. I didn't like my job at the clothing store. It seems that our main task as busy girls is to attract men to the store. Most of the males came there to stare at us and lust after the Eritrean girls' semi-naked bodies. Some of them tried to date me or make sexual deals with me after my work hours ended, but I rejected their immoral demands, quarreled with some of them, and expelled them from the store. In the new dorm, I got to know more about my Eritrean mates. I learned who was friends with which girl and who she was related to which boy. Some of the refugee boys tried to be friendly with me, but I kept my distance from them. During those 3 weeks, almost everything happened in the same way, every day. Same male visitors, same meals, and same bedtime. One Thursday evening, that routine life suddenly changed. Because Thursday evening is the day before the weekend on Friday, I was told that every girl usually likes to spend it with her boyfriend either at the movie theater or staying in the dorm to have fun. On that Thursday, each Eritrean girl drank alcohol, slept with her boyfriend, and had sex with him openly in one of the rooms, even though she was not married to him yet. Such immoral behavior was normal for them as if they were hookers and jerks from the streets. As the night progressed, each of them got drunk and danced with her friend and the rest. That night, several other new girls and boys joined the group. They sounded like they were in a Western discotheque or an Egyptian cabaret for Eastern belly dancing. They played very loud music and danced. The residence has been converted into a nightclub for belly dancing, a disco hall, or a brothel and tavern. I decided to move out the next day from the residence, which was not suitable for an Egyptian girl like me. I asked my Eritrean coworker to find me a place to spend the night. She said that they were celebrating the birthday of one of the girls who had turned 20 years old. The party, loud music, dancing, and orgy continued until late into the night. I don't know if some of the neighbors complained about the loud music or if the night police were passing by one of the roads next to the residence. Suddenly, more than 20 armed Egyptian police officers raided the rented house. We were all arrested, boys and girls. We were first taken for a breathalyzer test. The results of medical examinations showed that all the girls and boys were drunk. I was the only Arab girl who was found free of alcohol. The police officer in charge was surprised to see me among these refugee girls and boys. He questioned me more than he did them. He took my name, address, and place of work. He wanted to know more about me. He suspected that I lied to him about my identity. I was released the next day after spending 24 hours in detention. The girls, as well as the other boys, were detained in prison until they were all flogged for drinking alcohol and making noise until late hours of the night. Once I was released from jail, I started looking for another place to live. No rental landlord or landlady was willing to rent a residence to a single girl. I did not go to work that day. I called my boss at the store and informed him of the mass arrest and its reason. The same Egyptian police officer in charge who interrogated me at night went to my workplace first and then came to my residence. I was alone when he came to the place of the Eritrean girls who had been arrested while drunk. He claimed that he came to investigate my suspicious activities. I became very afraid to be with him alone in the house, which became like an abandoned brothel of prostitutes. His inquiries about me have nothing to do with the mass arrest last night. He told me, "I have been a police officer for 10 years. And I learned from experience that a beautiful young Egyptian girl of your age will not leave her Arab Muslim family and come and live with these obscene Eritrean refugee girls unless she does something disgraceful and flees from her family. Now I know that you will not confess to me your shameful crime that caused you to be displaced from your family's home. At least tell me where your family lives. I lied to him and told him that I was an orphan girl and I had an old mother and a young brother. My father, who had been ill for a long time, recently died of cancer. I came to this big city to look for an honest job to earn money to support my family. My mother is elderly and disabled. Where is your mother now? She lives in a village in southern Egypt with some of my relatives and my little brother. Why don't you bring her here to stay with you? I will bring her soon. I found an honest job and just started working. I need to work for some time to earn a little money to help me rent a modest residence and bring my elderly mother and my little brother Samir. Where's your village? In Upper Egypt, I lied to him about my place of origin. You came all the way from the south alone to come to work in Cairo City. Yes, sir. Why didn't you work in a city near your village? I came here because there are more job opportunities for girls in Cairo than in my province. Tell me the name of your village. I can't tell you that, sir. My mother told me not to reveal my place of birth and upbringing to anyone. Why does your mother want you to hide the name of your village? Because it is a shame in my village for an Egyptian Muslim girl to work. Isn't it shameful for a Muslim Arab girl from Upper Egypt to come and live here alone? She lives with prostituted Ethiopian girls in a place like this, similar to brothel and bar. Sir, I would not have left my home and my town if circumstances had not forced me to do so. Listen, Miss Ikramsula, I am not convinced by your story that you told to cover up your shame. However, Egyptian law does not allow me to detain you and put you in prison unless you commit a crime that deserves to be punished. I want you to know that the refugee girls you are staying with are not chaste girls. They are all prostitutes, drunkards, addicted to alcohol and cigarettes, and without good families to take care of them. Thank you for your advice, sir. Since last night's incident, I have already decided to find another safe shelter. I can help you find a safe shelter if you accept my advice and help. I know a good Egyptian woman who rents rooms to single girls like you. Although the police officer promised to help me find safe housing, I did not trust him. His eyes revealed to me his inner sexual lust for my sexy body and the beauty of my face. In order to discourage him from imposing himself on me, I asked him to give me time to think about the matter. But it's not safe for you, a pretty single girl, to stay here alone any longer. In addition, the neighbors will put pressure on the owner of this residence to evict you. Sir, I will talk to my boss at work and he might help me find another place. I hope your boss at the clothing store is still interested in keeping you working with him. I went to him before I came to you and already informed him of your arrest and the charges against you. His information about his visit to my workplace made me realize that he wanted to close all doors in my face until I agreed to seek his help. When he was unable to convince me to accept his help in finding another accommodation, he left. His expectations, or rather his plan that he hatched against me at my workplace, succeeded, as he said. The next day when I went to work at the clothing store, my boss fired me. He said that my immoral behavior and being locked up in prison while drunk might harm his store's reputation. I tried to convince him of my righteousness and that I was not drunk like the other girls, but he did not believe me. He said that the police report stated that the two girls who worked with him were caught in a brothel and were dead drunk, having sex with men with whom they had no marital or blood ties. I was paid my wages for the 21 days I worked there. When I returned to the rented house of the detained Eritrean girls, I found the landlord waiting for me with a large lock in his hand. He gave me 24 hours to find new housing. On that day, I searched everywhere for another safe shelter. All my efforts were in vain. Disappointed, I returned to the residence of imprisoned Eritrean young women, which had become like a hideout for thieves. Shortly after I arrived at sunset, the same lustful police officer came to the residence. I didn't like seeing his face again because I didn't expect him to come back and I didn't want it. He asked me if I had arranged new safe accommodation for myself. He also told me that he had received a collective complaint from the neighbors. In order to get rid of him, I lied to him and said that I had found a new place and was moving there. He wanted to know where I would live after I moved out of the house I had been evicted from. I can't say anything about that, or tell you where I go from here, sir. My last sentence disappointed all his efforts. I could see the anger on his face when I said that frustrating sentence to him. He rose to his feet and stared at me for a while. There is no excuse for the one who is warned. Those were his last threatening words to me before he left. Chapter 14. The Egyptian wife who fled from her home, her husband, her sons, and her city and became a homeless girl in the streets of Cairo drank some cups of strong Ethiopian alcohol and smoked some cigarettes before resuming her tragic story to her friend. I spent most of the next day looking for a place to rent, but I couldn't find safe accommodation. There was no owner of a rental place to be willing to rent even one room for a single girl. Some cheap hotels and motels have their management say that Egyptian law does not allow a woman without her husband or father to reserve a room and stay in it alone, even for one night. So, in the evening, I returned to my temporary residence with great disappointment. I found the rental owner waiting for me with a big padlock in his hand. I handed him the keys to all the rooms of the imprisoned Eritrean girls and left his residence. I knew the night would come to me very soon. I couldn't imagine myself spending one night out in the open like a stray dog. The streets were crowded with loiterers, scoundrels, criminals, and prostitutes. My first idea was to search for a foreign hotel that allowed European women to stay alone. I abandoned this idea when I remembered that for a young single girl like me, a hotel would be as dangerous as the streets. Moreover, I learned that no hotel allows an Egyptian Muslim woman to be received without her Muslim husband or a Muhrim male, such as her father, grandfather, or adult brother. While I was wondering where to go to spend my first night without shelter on the streets, I suddenly remembered that there was a girl from my town studying at the Teachers' College for Girls in Cairo. I didn't even remember the girl by her first name. The only thing I know about her is her family name, the Habibullah family. I stopped a woman on the road and asked her to direct me to the girls' teachers' college. She told me the name of the bus that goes to that college. I immediately got on the bus and went there. The college hostel was heavily guarded by armed police as it was a jail for female students. I asked the guards to allow me to meet the dormitory administration. The hostel warden was initially not willing to contact the student I came to meet because I did not know much about her and could not remember her first name. I mentioned her last name, Habibullah, and the city she came from in southern Egypt. I lied to the lady warden of the interior and told her that I had some money to give the girl. After I begged her, she revealed to me the girl's first name and she called her. The girl also did not remember my name, Ikram, but she said that she remembered that she had seen me before. Then I took her aside and revealed my problem to her. I trusted her and told her the reason that prompted me to flee our town. She showed great concern about my tragedy. She took me to the cafeteria and bought me dinner. Then she told me that she has a boyfriend in town who is engaged to her and that they will get married soon. She suggested that I stay with his family until I find a solution to my problem. I was very happy to accept her suggestion and her offer to help me and trust me. Then she immediately called her fiancé and asked him to come take me to his house. That student's name was Amira Habibullah and her fiancé was called Monir. Her lover was an officer in the Egyptian Navy. Amira was a beautiful, white girl from a Turkish background. Her fiancé, Munir, was also a handsome young man of Turkish origin. I later learned that their families immigrated to Egypt and settled in our country many years ago. Monir arrived in his military uniform and in his car to pick me up. That day I felt great relief that my seemingly insoluble ordeal had been resolved. A few hours ago, I was in a completely hopeless situation, and then good people agreed to accommodate me in their home, and then I was transported in a Navy vehicle. Officer Munir and his Turkish family members spoke an Arabic dialect that was foreign to me, so I found it difficult to understand it at first. His mother and father were very good parents. He had 2 sisters. One of his sisters recently got married. I did not know whether the student, Amira, revealed my secret to her fiancé, Monir, or not. I told her to keep it top secret and not tell anyone about it. The next day, she and one of her fellow students came to visit me at her lover's house. We spent most of the time talking about our city and comparing it to Monir's city. Her lover's older sister lives with her husband in her family home. She was the sweetest person I have ever met. I loved her from the first time I met her. She was very honest and open. She told Amira in front of everyone to be careful that the lovely girl Ikram did not steal her fiancé's heart from her. Monir answered while laughing. In this case, the saying that the wilderness hen drove out the house hen will come true. Monir's sister said, "Yes, Ikram is a very beautiful Egyptian girl." The student, Amira, replied, "You should also be careful that she does not steal your husband from you." At first, I felt uncomfortable with the way the Turkish family spoke to each other. Monir and his sisters talked to their parents as if they were their friends. They can criticize them and disagree with their opinion very easily. I interpreted it as disrespectful, but then I gradually started to like it. Munir's younger sister was in love with someone. Her parents encouraged her to go out with him and sometimes invited him to come to their house. My parents will not allow such an open love relationship with a young man before marriage. Nadia, Monir's older sister, always praised my beauty in front of her family members and Amira. One day I had to correct her when she told Monir in front of Amira that I was more beautiful than his fiancé. Monir interrupted me, saying, "Yes, Ikram, Nadia is honest in what she says. It is true that you are more beautiful than them all. You look like an actress in an American Hollywood movie or an Egyptian movie superstar. Even if you claim to be Miss World, people will believe you." Amira said angrily, "Beauty should not only be in the face and body, but also in the heart, soul, and good morals." Her hurtful words pierced my heart like a sharp knife stuck in my chest. I tried to convince myself that she didn't mean to hurt me, but she was serious about her comment. Nadia picked up Amira's unfair judgment on me and tried to repair the damage to my heart. She shouted at Amira, "Yes, you are right, but Ikram's heart is as pure as gold." "Have you known this girl, Ikram, for a long time?" Amira asked Nadia challengingly. "Not long, but I can still judge by the short time she's lived here. She is the best Egyptian girl in her behavior, manners, and respect for people that I have ever known in my life." That day I realized that something was not right going on between Nadia and Amira. I learned more about this matter from Nadia after the student Amira returned to her college. Before Nadia married her lover, Amira was against their friendship. She even accused her of having sex with her lover before their marriage. She also criticized her younger sister Sophia's love relationship with her boyfriend. I can understand why Amira criticized the two sisters' behaviors. I tried to explain to Nadia and Sophia the difference between their upbringing and the way Amira was raised. However, the two sisters considered their brother's fiancée to be a mentally retarded girl who was hateful towards them. They publicly admitted that they wanted their brother Monir to break off his engagement to the student Amira. Even the parents did not like their son's fiancée because they considered her reactionary, envious, and self-indulgent. Monir became very affectionate with me and wished me a beautiful future in Cairo. Meanwhile, his sisters Nadia and Sophia tried to push his feelings towards me beyond the normal affection towards a girl who lives with them. They even wanted him to leave Amira and fall in love with me and marry me. In order to discourage them, I told them that I had a boyfriend. I also told them that because of my love affair with him, I ran away from my family home and my city. But they were very smart girls and could not believe that I had a lover who I ran away from and came to Cairo. They told me that my behavior did not show that I had a boyfriend. In any case, in that atmosphere charged with hatred between the student, Amira Habibullah, and the family members of her fiancé, the naval officer, Munir, I lived for more than a month in that new residence. It was the only happy and peaceful time I had since I fled my city. I wanted to work as a clothes seller or a maidservant for the Monir family, but the Turkish family did not accept it. I told them about my bitter experience with my first two jobs in an old husband's house and my work in a clothing store and what happened to me after I was caught with the Eritrean girls. Monir's parents advised me to join a vocational institute and receive some training in typing. I liked the idea, especially since they suggested paying my fees. Following their advice, I registered myself to learn writing and typing at an evening institute designated for vocational training for girls. I used to go by bus every day and practice for 2 hours on the typewriter. I attended writing and typing classes in Arabic and English. I continued my training for a full week before my problems started again. One day, the fiancée, Amira, came to her fiancé, Monir's house, and spoke to me in secret. She was so nervous and so angry that her mouth became foaming like an agitated cow. She accused me of conspiring with the two sisters of her fiancé, Nadia and Sophia, and creating discord between her and her lover. The accusation was that I was standing by the two sisters by encouraging Monir to end their love, separate from her, and break off his engagement to her. She also told me that her friend Monir started praising the beauty of the new girl, Ikram, more than her. She concluded that my presence in her fiancé's home would make him and his family members hate her and would ultimately lead to him breaking off the engagement and he will marry me. She made me feel as if I had repeated the same selfish behavior when I fell in love with Nabila's lover Al-Taib Salih and married him. That's why Amira asked me to leave that house and go somewhere. She gave me a day to leave, or else she would reveal to her lover's family my shameful secret about the honor killing that my husband had committed against a lecherous man because of my involvement in an adulterous relationship with him. In order to put more fear in my heart and make me flee in horror, she said that she would inform the Egyptian police in Cairo about my adulterous relationship with the murdered witch doctor and about the honor killing that my husband carried out against him, which prompted me to flee my home and my city. She left me with no choice but to leave immediately. She said that she would not leave her lover's house and return to the teacher's college boarding school, and that she would remain there for some days until she was sure that I would not return there again. So, I fled from her fiancé's house, and my heart was filled with more fear than the terror I felt when I fled from the house of the blackmailer Faki Mahmoud, who was slaughtered by my husband in a brutal honor killing. Chapter 15. For some time, Hafez noticed that Ikram no longer drank alcohol as much as she did before. She was more immersed in the events of her past life than drinking liquor. However, he saw a sudden change in her eyes when that pivotal moment arrived in recounting the memories of her past life full of surprises. She took the bottle from his hand and filled her glass until the drink spilled all over her body and the bed. The boyfriend said, "Be careful, my love, you are spilling alcohol on your body." The girlfriend said, "I'm sorry, my dear, I'm so sorry that I was born a woman. I wish that God had created me as an animal instead of a human female lacking in religion and reason. That would be much better for me than being born a woman. Because animals have more freedom in this country than women. A woman who does not have a guardian muhrim, like a father or a brother to accompany her, or a husband to protect her will be vulnerable to sexual harassment and abuse wherever she goes. Men in this patriarchal Islamic society see in women only their bodies. They think that every girl who walks in the street without a man to protect her is a fallen woman. No matter what a woman does, she cannot change this concept. A beautiful young woman like me without a man to protect her is just exposed flesh and an open pussy, and every man wants to devour her flesh and rape her. On that day, the angry student Amira Habibullah forced me to leave the good people who were willing to protect me and help me secure an honest job and permanent, safe housing. When I escaped, I found myself once again wandering the streets of Cairo aimlessly. Once I left her fiancé Monir's family, I went to the institute where I started my vocational training and lied to the manager. I told her I changed my mind. She believed me and returned what I paid for my training in typing and writing. I felt a bit safe with that little money. I decided to go to the police officer and accept his offer to help me find housing. At least he was a man of the law, and he might not do any more harm to my character as a homeless woman than those men on the streets. But when I remembered his hidden lustful intention, I dropped the idea. I was hoping a better solution would come from somewhere. I spent most of that day looking for safe shelter, but found nothing. When night came, I decided to spend it in a hotel. I knew that most hotels are not allowed by law to check in for a single girl if she does not have a husband or father with her. Plus, good hotels charge more money, so I had to spend the night in a cheap hotel. I found a small hotel that allowed me to rent a room and stay without a male companion. I regretted taking such a foolish step. Every man in that hotel thought I was a whore. From the janitor to the manager, everyone wanted to make a sexual deal with me. Some guests used the housekeeping workers as an intermediary to contact me. Every now and then, someone would knock on my room door. I did not sleep that night for fear that someone would attack me while I was sleeping. I only felt relief when the sun rose. Then I had the opportunity to sleep until noon. When I left the hotel, I went to the main market to look for honest work. This time I found a job as a waitress in a nice restaurant. The manager was happy that I agreed to work with him. He did not have a girl working in his restaurant. He told me that he had hired Ethiopian girls before, but they stole money from him, so he fired them. I did not tell him about the problem of my lack of residency. His words and actions revealed to me that he wanted to get closer to me sexually from day one. I did everything I could to make him realize that I wasn't the kind of woman he was thinking about. I worked with him until 9:30 at night. As soon as I left the restaurant, I was faced with the problem of my stay. Before I could think where to go, I saw the manager walking out of the restaurant. He approached me, smiling, and said, "You didn't even tell me where you live." "I hope you don't mind, sir, if I don't tell you where I live. My parents don't want any man to visit my house." "This is not a problem at all. We can go to a hotel. I will pay the hotel price for one night, and if you want to stay longer, I can cover that as well. I'm not a bad girl, and if you talk to me about this again, I won't come back to your restaurant. I promise I'll pay you more money for your work. And now also whatever you ask to have a good time with me in a hotel, I can give it to you. If you had a sister, would you want her to sell her body as a whore for money to men? I am an unmarried man. If you want to be my girlfriend, I'm open to that. I don't want to be your friend. Do you have a secret friend or other lover? This is none of your business. Please let me go. Play this dirty game of preserving your honor with someone else. I know life more than you do." "What do you mean by this, sir?" "Ever since I saw you, I knew what kind of girl you were." "What do you know about me?" "Listen, Ikram, if you want to continue working with me in the restaurant as a waitress, you must be willing to be my friend and please my customers. I know a nightclub where I can mediate for you to work as a belly dancer and earn millions of Egyptian pounds in a short time. Then go and get your sister to do it for your customers and dance for them Ashera Baldi in a nightclub while she is almost naked. I'm not the kind of girl who would sell her thighs to men for money. You're a slut and also shameless. If you don't let go of me, I will call the police to arrest you." The manager looked at me angrily and then spat on the floor. I looked him back in the face without fear. Then he turned his back and returned to his restaurant. That night, I had to go back to the first house where the drunk man tried to rape me, but I screamed and called the neighbors on him, and he was beaten and sent to prison. His wife closed the door in my face and threatened to call the police if I went near her house again. I stood for a moment, staring at that door as if it were an iron wall. I didn't know what to do or where to go. The most dangerous time for a homeless girl is night. No good girl in any Arab or Muslim country will walk the streets at night alone. I was forced to leave the confines of that family's home only when the woman reappeared and repeated her threat to call the cops on me. I walked aimlessly for some time. I didn't know where I was going until I noticed the steps of two men following me. They were about to grab me from behind. I had to run to try to escape from them. They chased me as if I were one of the daughters of their relatives who wanted to arrest her. I screamed as loudly as I could for help. My screams made them turn back and run away. My screaming sound caught the attention of a police patrol car. "Young lady, where are you going this late at night?" a policewoman asked me in a harsh, man-like voice. "To my house, ma'am." "Where's your house?" "It's somewhere in town." "Come with us, we can't let you walk the streets alone at night." "Thank you, ma'am. I know how to get home." "You're a homeless girl. We've been following you for an hour." "I live with my uncle." I quarreled with his wife and left their house in anger. I can now return to them myself after my righteous anger has subsided. "We have already arrested 2 homeless girls working in your night profession. Come with us too." "I will not come with you, ma'am." When I said those words, I turned my face and started to walk away from the police car. The policewoman ran after me and grabbed my hand. Then she started forcefully dragging me towards the car. I resisted for a while. "If you don't release my hand, I will scream and call people. Go ahead and scream as loud as you can." I screamed and bit the policewoman's hand. She didn't care about my efforts to release myself. She dragged me like an animal and threw me into her police car. I found in the police wagon 2 Ethiopian girls who were handcuffed and tied to a chain on 2 seats. That night, we were detained and then charged with disguised prostitution and prowling at night. I spent a week in prison before I was sentenced to 40 lashes and released. Although the prison was the dirtiest place I had ever been, it was safer than the streets. During my short stay in prison, I learned that I no longer had a place in society. Before that day, I was trying to hold on to something that no longer belonged to me. I realized that I was doomed to live the rest of my life like these whores and criminals. Society always looks at me as a prostitute girl like them. I had no choice but to follow their lifestyle, which was the world of crime and prostitution. Since I was caught red-handed while engaging in blackmailing sexual relations with the witch Dr. Faki Mahmood, I have lost my standing in society and become a traitorous, adulterous wife. I have become a homeless and fallen woman. I lost my protection and became like an open vagina for every man who sees me wherever I go. I came out of prison a different person. I decided not to fool myself anymore. The first man I went to was the police officer who suggested finding me safe housing. I expected that he might help me without causing great harm to my character as a helpless young woman. He was very happy to see me. I agreed to give him what he wanted from me if he helped me find a safe shelter and work. He gladly accepted the secret sex deal and promised to always help and protect me. He kept me in his office until he finished his shift. It was late in the evening when we left the office. He drove me in his police car. He was still wearing his police uniform. I thought he would take me to his house and keep me with his family until he found a safe place for me. He led me outside the city to a place I did not know. When we got there, he pulled out a bottle of foreign-made whiskey from his car and invited me to drink with him. But I refused to drink with him and told him that I had never drunk alcohol in my life. He drank some of that alcohol very quickly. Then he started sexually preying on me. This was the first time I had willingly allowed a man to fuck me. It was a humiliating experience for a girl of the same social standing as me. I did not hate him alone, but I hated everyone who led me to that shameful life. I cried silently as he drunkenly abused my body. When we got back to town, it was very late in the middle of the night. He booked me a hotel room and promised me that he would come in the morning. It was a good hotel. Although no one bothered me, my conscience would not allow me to sleep until sunrise. That police officer promised me that he would arrange a safe place for me to stay the next day. He did not appear until late in the evening of the third day. He told me that due to his busy schedule, he could not arrange my stay yet. He also slept with me that night in the hotel room and, of course, after drinking some alcohol. Early in the morning, he paid for my meals and room and left. He came on the fourth day with the same excuse and also fucked me as usual with a bottle of whiskey. I began to doubt his promises. I felt that he was treating me like a Shiite Muslim girl who had entered into a temporary enjoyment marriage. On the fifth day, I told him that if he did not arrange a safe place for me and an honest job, I would not allow him to touch my body again. That evening he became very angry with me because I refused to sleep with him, so he got into a drunken fight with me and even slapped me and left. On the sixth day, the hotel manager informed me that the police officer who brought me had paid the bills for the days I stayed with them, canceled my room reservation, and demanded that they expel me. So, the manager told me that if I had to continue staying at the hotel, I would have to pay for the room in advance. I called the police officer to confirm what the manager said. He told me that he tried hard to find safe housing for me, but no one in the city was willing to rent his place to a young, single girl who had no husband, family, or a man. Before I could talk to him further,